Most of my professional experience is in London, of course. I think in London what we've seen is a growing importance of heritage buildings that anchor redevelopment and regeneration of certain areas. So I'm thinking, for instance, King's Cross and the placemaking around Granary Square and the sensitive redevelopment of the listed buildings around there. Battersea Power Station, of course, which is taken a long time to redevelop, but I think most people can see that as an icon and as a brand. And I think it's helping people and employees, helping with the agenda of bringing younger people into cities. Young people in the UK certainly want to be living in cities. They don't want to be working on out-of-town office parks outside of main urban centres. They want to be in town, and I think those brands and those icons are really helping with that. I think in terms of the building scale, I think if you look at the wider scaling, London's always had a history of remaking, reinventing itself. Look at the fire and the Blitz, and then the reconstruction after the war, the post industrial period with the Docklands in London, and the work that's been done around there. And I think having those kinds of scale of intervention, those docks and those large, big Victorian railway stations to work with, I think is an interesting challenge for designers, and I think it's something that's actually really created place and character in those areas, and I think it's something that people enjoy. In terms of how that's playing out around the world, I think you would see similar kinds of initiatives in Paris, similar initiatives in all of the old European cities. I think some cities unfortunately were considerably damaged during the war, but I think those that still have their heritage assets would do well to cherish them and make sure they're anchoring developments and they're the centrepiece of those developments. I think some of the challenges in those buildings are that they are not necessarily energy efficient. The good news, I guess, from the UK standpoint is the grid is decarbonising, which means that the embodied energy of buildings is becoming ever more important. So, the tendency not to knock down buildings, but to actually keep them is supporting that position. So that's quite a good thing. Some buildings are challenged in terms of the way they were first designed, with the floor-to-ceiling heights were designed for one purpose and not another, and not a second life, if you will. And I think those are more constrained and more difficult. Also, I guess the health and well-being agenda that we're seeing, with people increasingly aware of the importance of environment, its impact on well-being and consequently productivity. Some buildings and the way they've been designed with their deep plan floor plates and their poor fenestration are going to be a little bit more difficult to convince people that they can meet things like WELL standard. However, it's not impossible. We have a building ourselves, I think, in Warsaw, which is an existing tower block, which is refenestrated, and we're applying for the WELL building standard. So it is possible with creative design, I think, to transform these buildings and repurpose them for a different generation.